Hello, my name is Luciano Lucas. I'm the Executive VP here at DRVision, and today it's my pleasure to introduce, together with quite a few of the Aivia team, our new service tool, Aivia Web. We'll be doing this a little bit different this time around. Several people will be joining in on the demo session, and the demos will be done from San Francisco, Houston, Tokyo, Lisbon, Bordeaux, and of course, Seattle. So I'll start with a brief introduction about the concept and the licensing, pricing, and the benefits of Aivia Web, and then we will go on to see the demos from all these different locations. We'll finish with a joint, collaborative, interactive demo between US and Europe. And then there'll be question and answer session at the very end. So thank you very much for joining. We hope you enjoy this next 45 minutes or so together with us here at DRVision. Over the last 3 years, we have developed quite a range of functionality that spans both non-machine learning as well as a variety of machine learning powered image segmentation and object classification. We launched the first version of Aivia back in April 2017, and since then we've been launching 2 or 3 major releases per year, culminating in the latest release, which is Aivia 9, which includes multi-scale image analysis. We added also surface transparency, multi-resolution mesh rendering, specular light control, dynamic search bar, which is really fun to use, and a variety of other functionality. Earlier this year, we also launched Aivia Community, which is a freeware that allows for the visualization of data sets and also the exploration of datasets that have been previously analyzed using Aivia. In addition, it also allows for the collaborative annotation of datasets so that you can train machine learning pixel classifier as a team. Over the years, we've added quite a lot of functionality, as you saw in the previous slide, and so the product family has increased from just Aivia, then we added Aivia Cloud, Aivia Community, and now we're going to be discussing today of this new tool, new platform, which is Aivia Web. We initially developed Aivia Web for our internal use and to facilitate our R&D projects with our collaborators, some of them working at a significant distance from Seattle. So we're very happy that that kind of a approach has progressed and matured to something that now everybody can use. So this is the full kind of architecture, high-level architecture and data flow for the Aivia product family, including cloud and web. And it can be divided into 3 parts. The Aivia desktop version that is installed in a local computer, and you can have multiple licenses running on a licensed server. That connects to Aivia Cloud via the client, the local client that can send jobs to cloud computing. Right now it's set up for the Google Cloud platform, and it will spin up instances and start jobs and run the training job or the apply job, and then spin them down and turn everything off. So that's all controlled from within Aivia, but the tasks are sent to Aivia Cloud over here. We also have now, and we're introducing that today, Aivia Web. Aivia Web actually has all the functionality of Aivia. The only difference is that it is deployed and used through a web browser, and so you're not really dependent on your local installation. And I'll go in a little bit more detail in a moment. Aivia Community is like Aivia, a desktop-bound or a laptop-bound installation. So it works on your local machine. So this slide summarizes the key points of similarity and difference between Aivia and AiviaWeb. I've highlighted in a kind of teal color all the items on the Aivia Web that one could perceive as favorable versus Aivia. There is one key item which is not favorable, and that's this one here. So let's go through these and have a look. So ownership model with Aivia Web, it's a subscription model, so pay every year a subscription fee, and you can stop it, of course, at the end of each year. With Aivia, it's a permanent license, so you buy it and you own it forever. In terms of cost, for Aivia, it depends on what functionality you need, and it scales in that way. So more functionality is a more expensive license, whereas Aivia Web, we are offering it as with a flat fee with all the functionality. In terms of access, with Aivia and Aivia floating license, you have to log in and you have to access a specific piece of hardware that typically is in a specific room somewhere at your university or lab. Whereas with a web, Aivia Web, you can simply open a web browser from anywhere and access your Aivia Web installation and use it. This one is perhaps the key one that differentiates the kind of use cases for Aivia and Aivia Web. Data storage. With Aivia, typical is to have it local, have the data locally, and you have basically access to all of the data, and you can process it and have a quick processing of it locally. But with Aivia Web, ideally the data lives in the cloud so that it can be accessed from within the platform, and it avoids you having to upload large amounts of data and download large amounts of data each time you want to start or finish a session. In terms of operating system requirements, Aivia runs on Windows 10 and some variations of it. And Aivia Web can run on anything, on Windows or Mac. It will work just fine as well. As long as you have a web browser, it will be perfect. Number of concurrent users, it is fixed to the number of permanent licenses purchased. And here it's also fixed, but to the number of user accounts purchased. In terms of performance, with Aivia, it's dependent on what hardware you have available, whereas with web, you should have very good performance every time because it uses high-performance cloud computers. In terms of hardware costs, it's medium to high. This is relative, of course, because you're depending on what you actually buy to run. But with Aivia Web, there is really minimal cost. You can just use a basic laptop or desktop as long as it has an internet connection. In terms of hardware maintenance costs, there is, with Aivia Web, Aivia itself, there's depreciation that you have to consider for the hardware that you buy. You might need to replace parts or do repairs. And of course, you need to consider the IT staff costs. With Aivia Web, there is essentially no additional cost beyond the subscription fee that you pay. With the software maintenance costs, that's also a similar scenario. So with Aivia, there is an annual maintenance fee, which is a recurring cost. And with Aivia Web, it is included in the subscription. So there is no additional cost. So in summary, these are the key benefits. There is no need to buy, set up, or maintain large amount of hardware. You can access your data from anywhere, assuming it is living in the cloud already. It is OS independent. You can access it from any computer, so you don't need to go to a core facility or any specific physical location to access it. And you will always use the latest Aivia version on the best possible hardware. So what's included? You get all of the recipes, the pixel and the object classification tools. You also get the train and apply platform, and basically anything else that Aivia includes. Now, for batch processing, even though it is included, it does require all the data to be available and accessible, so that there may be some limitations for the use of batch processing with Aivia Web, which we can discuss in more detail once you explore this functionality. You're always going to be using this kind of setup. So it's a high performance piece of hardware that you can see here. It's a very good NVIDIA graphics card, 16 core CPU, and plenty of RAM, 122 gigabytes of RAM, which should be sufficient for almost every possible application. You do access your preferred AiviaWeb cloud server. So depending on where you live and where you typically are working from, you can pick the one that is closest to you that will have the best latency, so the lowest latency. But really, all of them should work well, even if if you live in Europe and you go to Japan for a conference, which nowadays is kind of unlikely due to COVID. But if you do that, you can still use your European connection and it will work well. But of course, when you're in Europe, it will work even better. You will get technical and application support via a number of channels, and you have immediate access to the latest version of Aivia, which is 2 or 3 per year. What is not included is cloud storage or data management. That we leave to you, so you can bring your own storage and data management system, and Aivia will connect to it and try to fetch the data from it. In terms of pricing, for new Aivia users, the price will be or is $5,000 per year. And for existing users, using Aivia Web as an add-on to an existing Aivia license, then it is just $2,000 per year. Please note that these prices are for US and Europe. In other regions, it may vary or it may not even be available yet. Another important note is we're going to review the pricing structure at the end of September, and it may evolve at that point. Of course, if you have a subscription, if you subscribe between now and then obviously you're going to be you're going to have that subscription for the next year. But if you wait until later, it may be a little bit different from what we see right now. It is currently unclear if we have to evolve it or not. So let me introduce the demos that we'll do. The first one will be done from 3 continents, 4 countries, and 6 cities. We start in Seattle, then we'll go to Bordeaux. We'll go then to San Francisco in California, then to Houston, Texas, then across the Atlantic to Lisbon, then to Tokyo and Japan, and then we'll go back and finish in Seattle. So we'll do a series of very brief demonstrations of Aivia Web, and you can see what we're going to be doing. So we start with kind of a quick start guide on how to get Aivia Web running and how to upload some data and visualize it. And then we'll progress through some of the key features that Aivia and Aivia Web can offer. And we'll finish with visualization, creation of videos with Aivia Web. The next demo is joint one. So we will have 5 people joining the same AiviaWeb session from different cities, so 5 cities, and we'll be looking at the same data set and interacting with the same data set and doing some image analysis, discussing it, and then doing a video at the end to illustrate some of the analysis that we've just done. And these are the cities that are going to participate.
Hi everybody, this is Quyen. I am the Application and Marketing Manager here at DRVision, and I get the privilege of starting off our Aivia Web demo for you. What I'll be showing you is how to take your data from whatever cloud storage that you have into Aivia Web itself to do analysis there. I'll also be showing you just some of the display options that we have available in Aivia. So once you've logged into your Aivia Web account, you'll get access to both Aivia and CyberDuck. We're going to launch into CyberDuck right now to get our data from the cloud to Aivia Web itself. And this is the loading process of the CyberDuck, and it should usually take less than 2 minutes to do this. And once you've done this per session, you won't have to do it again. So now that we're in CyberDuck, we're going to open the connection and choose where we have our data. So I currently have it in Microsoft OneDrive, so that's what I'm going to select, but you have options to select a couple of more locations. So it's going to pop up a different browser here for me to log into my particular account to get the activation code it's asking for. All right, so this is the activation code that I want to copy and then paste into CyberDuck to give me access to my account. I'm going to locate the folder where I have the images, and this is the image that I want to use in Aivia. So I'm going to right-click that, download it to this PC and this temporary files folder here. That's going to start the download process, and you can see the progress bar here. So once that is complete, we can now launch into Aivia Web, and this is going to also require a bit of time to load, but much like CyberDuck, once you load this when you're in your session, you won't have to do it again. So if you need to go back to CyberDuck and then back to Aivia Web, you won't really have to do this waiting that we're doing here. All right, so once we're in Aivia, let's go to File, Open, go to that temporary file folder we just put our data set in, and open our data set. I'm going to collapse a few of the things here in Aivia just so that it's a little bit cleaner to look at, and also that the display area here is taking up a large portion of Aivia. So the default is that Aivia opens the images in 2D, and you can scroll through the Z slices here in the 2D main view, or you can launch into the 3D view here. So right now I only have the green and red channels on. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this third teal channel by clicking this eye icon open. And you can see the data first loads as a low res and then as a high res. And it does this because it takes a lot less time to load the low res, so you get instant visualization of your data set. And then later on, it's going to load the higher res for you. And then, of course, you can move the data around, zoom in and out of the data set. This teal channel is looking a little bit dark to me, so I'm gonna want to change that intensity displayed section. And I'm gonna do that by basically expanding the channel here to see the intensity profile. You can, of course, do it without seeing that, but I like to see where I'm kind of going, basically. So I'm just going to increase this move this right bar from the right to the left side to get a brighter display here. The other thing I want to show you is right now the rendering mode we're seeing is a maximum intensity projection rendering, but we have two other modes in Aivia. The first is composite volume, which also allows you to change each of these intensity values, and this change can be done per channel. So if you have different markers that have very different intensity profiles, you can adjust it however is necessary to meet your visual criteria. I'm going to go ahead and turn the red and the green channel off, and then show you the last rendering mode we have in Aivia, which is a preview surface. And now this also comes with an adjustment for the ISO level. And you can see immediate interaction here, so you know where to adjust this the best. I'm loving that composite mode, so I'm going to go back to that and turn on all three channels here. So here we are in our eye data set with the teal, red, and green channel on. I'm going to pause it here and transfer the demo to Patrice, who is currently in France.
Okay, we are now in Bordeaux, in France, and I will now connect to AiviaWeb to demonstrate how we can annotate an image, a 3D image, to prepare this dataset for 3D segmentation. And my colleague Jim Paladino will do the rest and apply that pixel classification to generate the 3D objects. So let's switch to AiviaWeb now. So we are now in AiviaWeb and interface, and here I loaded an image which is from the cell image library that you can find on the internet, which is number 3549, and this corresponds to the first channel cropped in the center, and as you can see, this is corresponding to cells in 3D that are quite packed and difficult to split with a normal segmentation tool. So here I will demonstrate the utility of using pixel classification here and relying on machine learning. So it will learn from our examples on the image what are the different classes that we want as pixels. Like each single pixel is belonging to one class. So let's say that, for instance, the first one is the cell, the other one is all what is not the cell, so it can be also some autofluorescence or blur also at the beginning. And what we will pick is an example of an image and some examples here of cells, and we can start to draw some examples that way. Pick the freehand, draw a region that would be corresponding to cells and background, and on top of it I will just specify what is the cell that we expect roughly, and what is also different examples of cells, not only a single cell, just different examples, different shapes, different intensities, and different sizes as well. So that way, here I can preview the results as a confidence map. So what we see in yellow is the confidence map corresponding to the classification of this class, of this pixel for this class, all the pixels, and then we can review that on all the different z-planes and correct. I also want to show you that we can save these annotations and come back to it later, or share it with a colleague. So if I can save it or load, for instance, I will just load the one I prepared. As you can see, the same here, plus some few annotations. And if I want to review them all, we have navigation arrows here, so I can really go on the little annotation that I added and see how many there are. And this would correspond to a result that I can review in 2D here with the confidence map or as segmented objects. That's the idea here. I can really get the segmented objects in a very fast way because it's relying on the GPU of the machine and it's very fast. And it means also that I can switch to 3D and get the sense of what's happening in 3D in terms of segmentation. So now that I have these results, I will send this to Jim, my colleague, and he will review that with you. So what I can do is to then save everything in one spot, meaning that it will save the image plus, let's create a new folder for Jim, and this will be the one I will share, which is corresponding, if we come back to it, this is corresponding to, if I show all the files, the image that I was using, plus the px training file, which is corresponding to these settings, plus the annotation, so that he can really work on it again as he did it himself. So, Jim, it's your turn.
My name is Jim Paladino, and I represent Aivia from San Francisco, California. I'll be joining AiviaWeb to continue a project my colleague Patrice started in France and finish with the pixel classification and then show some other features in AiviaWeb as well. Hope you enjoy. I'm now going to show how easy it is to move files from one AiviaWeb user to another. In a little bit, you're going to see simultaneous multiple users collaborating and visualizing with the same image from two different points of the Earth at the same time. For now, I'm going to take the images that Patrice started, or at least the image and also the classifier. He uploaded them to a shared drive, and we connect via shared drives through CyberDuck. In this particular case, I am connecting through my Microsoft OneDrive. I see my images here. So I am just going to upload them to a temporary folder here in AiviaWeb, where they will be accessible to me. So I'm already in AiviaWeb. I can open my temporary folder. I see my image file. Should look familiar. And you'll see I get the raw image, the classifier object set that he created. And I just want to take a quick look at it. If we were collaborating and working together from different points of the Earth, I may want to edit this a little bit. So another nice feature in Aivia is the ability to edit your classifiers. And as I look at this, I see some of these little artifacts here that aren't really cells of interest. So what I may do is open up the classifier and just modify it a little bit. I always delete the existing one that loads as a precaution. It's not necessary, but I just find I save myself trouble down the road if I make it a habit. I'll go ahead and open the classifier that Patrice had worked on. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase, let me lower my brush a little bit. I'm just going to paint some of these dots as background. My goal here is not to create the perfect image, but rather just show you some of the functionality of AiviaWeb. In the interest of time, I'll just go ahead and teach and apply this machine learning classifier process. And it'll create a second classifier now. So if I go back to looking at my meshes, and turn off this little light, makes the classifiers a little easier to see. If I turn off the original classifier, I didn't get rid of all of them. I did this very quickly, but you can see several of these little dots now have disappeared. So I'm going to go ahead and assume this is the final image the way I like it. I'm going to continue to work on this classifier 2 now. So let's look at some results. Let's say I've got the image I want. I'm going to go to the spreadsheet here. First thing I want to do is make sure I'm working on the right object set. So I'm going to change this to classifier 2. And let's say I want to look at some of the larger cells. So maybe I'll gate everything. I'll just kind of arbitrarily choose everything, say 3,000 cubic microns and larger. So now I've selected these and you see them all highlighted in white. I can also gate these out to create a subset. So now these 20, 30 or so objects are here. And what I like about Aivia a lot is this kind of interactivity between the image, the results, and if I want to look at a chart. So let's go ahead and pull up a chart here. Again, I want to make sure I'm looking at classifier 2. And for simplicity's sake, I'll just look at volume versus volume, probably be a straight line. Yep, there it is. And you can see these larger cells are already selected. If I want to select these smaller ones, now you notice the kind of mid-range ones are highlighted in white. If I just want to find the largest one, there it is right there. And then lastly, if I want to view by measurement results, size that way, I can go ahead and color by measurement. It's already here by volume. And I can move this little histogram slider around kind of arbitrarily at will. So now all my larger ones are going to be the red. These are these kind of red ones up here. And then I see my mids are like this green and yellow, and the smaller ones are going to be this kind of bluish purple ones here. And that's exactly what I see portrayed here. So again, that's just some of the basic functionality in Aivia. I hope you like what you saw, and now I'll send it down to Houston with Trevor. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Trevor. This is Fletcher, and we're the Aivia team for the Eastern U.S. based out of Houston, Texas. Today we're going to tell you about neuron analysis and object classification.
I have a 3D neuron loaded in AiviaWeb right now. You can see that this dataset consists of a single soma, many dendrites, and in this dataset we can even resolve many of the spines coming off the dendrites. So our 3D neuron analysis recipe is well suited to this kind of data. You can find that recipe along with all the others in the recipe console in the analysis tools panel. Now this recipe does have a lot of parameters, but that's what gives it its power. It might take a little while for you to learn what each of these parameters means. Luckily there's a reference in the meantime, a way to get trained on the fly every time you apply this recipe. It's very simple. I can go up to this search bar in Aivia 9 and just type the name of the recipe, or even just start typing it, and you'll see down here in the wiki links there's a link to the instructions about how to set up this recipe, and you can see what each of these parameters means and how to set them. Once you've set up the parameters for this recipe, you can click Start and apply it, and it will create an object set of your 3D neuron analysis. If I turn that on here, I've already run it, and you can see my soma is shown in orange. And despite the varying intensities of the dendrites in the raw data, I've traced them successfully, shown in purple. And I also see spines traced in bright green. Now, something else I want to show is our object classifier. That's found by clicking this little tag icon. And you can see I've already set this up. But what this is first we see all of the spines are in this unassigned class, and I can click this Show More button to show a 3D view of each spine. And I just took spines from this class, or the unassigned class, and I started assigning them. So I put 19 spines with high aspect ratios in what I call class 1, the red class, and I put 20 spines with shorter aspect ratios in class 2, the green one. Then I came down here, I taught this classifier, and I applied it. Since I've already done that, I can come back to my spine set here. Let me turn off my dendrites and somas to see these better. And now instead of showing these spines as a solid color, I can color them by class. And you can see I do have a few red ones, but mostly I've got green spines. And this is the kind of data that you can get out of combining a recipe to detect objects and then the object classifier to subclassify them. So thank you for watching, and now we go to Portugal.
Thank you, Trevor. Very nice demonstration. I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, and I'll be doing the next demonstration. I'll be focusing on how to explore your results in Aivia Web, specifically the charts and the spreadsheet. And then I'll move on to illustrate how to use our machine learning object classifier to segregate and classify cells into different phenotypes. This is a tool set that we launched in April 2017, and we continue to build on it, and we're very happy how it's working out. So let's have a look. This is a data set of an organoid captured using a 3i system, and I've already done the analysis using our multi-scale image analysis tools that we launched with Aivia 9 just a few weeks ago. So I have the outer membrane as well as the individual cells, and I can explore the results using the spreadsheet, which is here on the bottom, or using our charts, which are visible in the analysis tool, the charts tab. That's the histogram view, as well as the plot view. All of this is customizable, of course, and connected between the three data views. So between the chart, the spreadsheet, and the 3D view. So that's how you start exploring the results. You can, of course, use some visualization tools like our clipping plane here that allows you to cut through the data in different ways. But for now, I will stay with the data exploration. So that is the exploration part. Then the next thing is the classification or object classification using machine learning. We have a separate view called the classifier tool view. And this tool was launched over 3 years ago, and it's meant for allowing you to train a machine learning algorithm or machine learning approach to identifying different cell phenotypes. So here I have 2 cell phenotypes. I've already added a few cells into each of the classes. It's very easy to add additional cells. So I can just illustrate that. You can do that by selecting them from the view like this, and then assigning them, or you can select them from the chart and then assigning them, or maybe you want to assign just the ones that are very, very close or very far, in this case, very far from the center. So you can select a few from there and assign them. So whichever parameter you like, you can do that. Then you assign them. So I've added a few more cells to one of these classes, to cell type class 2. And then once you add additional examples, you need to update the machine learning object classifier, and then you can apply it. And when I hit apply, it will run the trained machine learning classifier onto the full 194 cells. And then it will add 2 tabs down at the bottom here with the cells that belong to one class or the other class. So let's continue the exploration of this. I can now show an additional parameter here, which is class group. And I can select the group. So this is one group, or class 1. This is class 2. I can also color code the objects by class group. That's what you see there. So there's 2 classes, the red and the blue. And in addition, I can also do a class confidence, which is pretty interesting as well. So it's how confident are we that a particular cell belongs to a particular class. So that's in a nutshell how to use Aivia for exploring some results, as well as doing object classification and looking for phenotypes. Thank you very much for joining. Now over to Japan. And just one last note, I have been using, during my demo, I was using AiviaWeb, a server back on the west coast of the US, while I'm in Lisbon. So of course, in that case, there is a little bit more latency than normal, but it's still very much usable and quite a lot of fun. So thank you for watching my demo, and now over to Japan.
Hello everyone, my name is Oikawa. Seikotec Corporation, and I'm doing this from Tokyo, Japan. And what I'm trying to do is demonstrate 2D or 3D analysis with Aivia Web. Please make sure that this is run on my browser, Google Chrome, here. Okay. So this is on Aivia Web environment. First, I'd like to show you some 2D analysis of tracking. This is data, you may say raw data of living cells, moving living cells. And for this image, I like to apply cell tracking recipe. Some recipe are prepared, and I select cell tracking recipe here. And what I'm trying to do here is adjust some parameters here. You can use some preset combination of parameters, but I adjusted some of the parameters here and apply these parameters for detection and tracking to this particular image data. So it's going, this process analyze is ongoing. And this color object shows the detected object. This is the raw data. Maybe I hide this. This is a object, detected object. And dot here is called anchor, which shows the center of the object. And you can see the tracking process of tracking tails, and you can adjust the length of tails here. And analysis is over. Yes, so it's over. And you can do a replay of video, changing speed like this. And you can also analyze some quantitative data with the spreadsheet function here or here or here. Okay. This is an example of 2D tracking analysis. Then I try to move to the second sample, which is a 3D analysis. Let's take a look at the 3D viewing angle here. And please be confirmed that this is, again, run on the web environment, but still moving very smoothly and comfortably here. Okay, and for this image data, I like to apply 3D object tracking recipe. Again, we need to adjust some parameters here for detection and partition and tracking, but I have already adjusted parameter like this, something like this. So I like apply these parameters for analysis. Now it detecting the objects. And it goes, okay, and now switch to the tracking analysis. Maybe I hide the raw data and object data. So what you can see is the center of the object and its tracking tails in 3D. So you can see the 3D trackings result like this. Okay, and again, you can replay the movies like this, or you can apply some quantitative analysis from selecting items here. You can get some quantitative data of a tracking. Okay, this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for joining us.
ありがとうございました Oikawa-san. And now we're back in Seattle. My name is Hoyin, and I'm going to show you the advanced visualization options and video animation in Aivia Web. Let's go to Aivia Web. Here,
we have the gastric gland organoid image from Dr. Shui Biaoyao at the University of Science and Technology in China. It is acquired on the light sheet by our good friend Ed Chica at 3i. I have already analyzed this image with the 3D cell analysis recipe. Let's take a closer look at the image and the analysis results. In the 3D display options, you can add a clipping plane that takes away part of the image, or an ortho slicer that shows you just the data on that particular plane. You can incorporate the clipping plane, the ortho slicer, and all the options in the display settings in the video animator to make some cool videos to share with your friends and colleagues. The video animator can be found at the bottom of the Aivia Web window next to the spreadsheet. Let's click on the video animator button now to open it. The video animator lets you add specific scenes or keyframes on the display into a timeline, and it will interpolate the transition between the keyframes and save the result as a video. I have already created a couple of keyframes for my video, so let's continue. For the next scene, I'm going to zoom in on the cell in the middle and show the relationship between the nucleus and the vesicles. Let's center the image, add a little bit of rotation to make it look more dramatic. There. Now, the cell membrane and the red object set is kind of distracting, so I'm going to hide the two of them. To hide the cell membrane, I can change the transparency of the surface by going to the alpha column and change the transparency slider all the way to 99%. As for the red object set, I'm going to click on the eye icon to hide it completely. This looks pretty good. I'm going to add the keyframe to my timeline. To add a keyframe, click on the plus icon in the timeline or the plus icon in the toolbar to add it. For my final scene, I'm going to use the clipping plane to hide everything that is currently shown on the image. To do that, I'm going to go to 3D display options, go to add a new clipping plane to add a new clipping plane. I can use the slider to change the position of the clipping plane or the on-screen widget to change it. Furthermore, I can change the orientation of the clipping plane by selecting on the axis column, or I can also flip the direction of the clipping plane by clicking on the flip icon. Since I don't want to have the clipping plane show up on my final output, I'm going to click on this row to hide it. To replace the keyframe, go to the timeline and click on this icon in the lower left corner. Now I'm ready to create the final frame. I'm going to slide the clipping plane slider all the way to the right and add the keyframe. Now I'm going to go back to the very beginning and do the same thing, only this time I'm going to start with a completely blank image and then reveal the volume rendering. To do that, I'm going to repeat what I just did again. To insert a keyframe, just right-click on the thumbnail and click Insert Before. I can change the transition between each of the keyframes by adjusting the number and down below, or add the same amount of time to every transition. Let's make it 2 seconds in between each transition. To preview the whole video, click on the play icon. The video animator will automatically determine the best camera path to transition in between each keyframe. Alright, now I'm ready to export the video. Click on the Export to Video icon. Select the location you want to save your file at, and then click Save. The video animator will now export the video. When this is finished, you can go to the top menu in AiviaWeb, go to My Files, select the folder that you have saved the video to, and then click on the file to download. Now, in the interest of time, I've already created this video once, So I'm going to download this and we can take a look at the final video output. Let's take a look. And that concludes this portion of the Aivia Web demo. Let's get everybody back together for the next part of the demo.
And now we'll try to use Aivia from all these different places, or at least a few of these different places in the planet. I'll be, as you know, in Lisbon. Let me share my screen with everybody so you can see what I'm looking at over here. Okay. So as you can see, I already logged in into Aivia Web, and I have a data set open here, kind of already prepared the analysis, but you're familiar with these, so it's possible to do previews. And right now I'm just previewing this last step, which is to preview the vesicles in one of these channels. I think it's the 640. So it'll be this last channel down here. And there it is. So this is matching pretty well this signal that we're getting here. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this recipe, which will include the detection of the cell, the nuclei, and 2 types of organelles. Okay, so the recipe is completed, and we now have the 4 object types. Here they are. We have the cell membrane, the nucleus, vesicle type 1 or organelle 1, and then the second one. And they are kind of semi-transparent and pretty nice. We already have a bunch of pre-computed parameters. So we can actually color code them already very nicely. For example, distance to the edge of the nucleus. And yeah, so as you can see, there's a few other people looking at what I'm doing right now. With Aivia Web, you can actually transfer. So if I stop using Aivia Web right now, I don't have to do anything. And Trevor is sharing this session with me, and we're basically looking at the same data set, and he can carry away and can continue and do whatever he wants. So I think he's gonna do some nice videos for us. But in principle, it can be used to discuss a data set with one of your colleagues. For example, I can point to something like this and say, oh, what about this over here? Isn't that interesting? And he is seeing the same thing on his side and can continue to analyze it. So yeah.
Yeah, more importantly, if you click on that, then I'm controlling the mouse now from Houston, and I can click on this instead and say, no, look at that one, or this one or that one. We can go back and forth like this. One of the cool things that about this collaborative mechanism is the ability to go through an animation process together. And whenever you explore how to visualize the data, it's usually a good time to spur some discussion about what the data actually shows. So now that I'm controlling the screen, I might pull this up and try to find a creative way to show what Luciano has made. So I think what I'm going to try is I'm going to show these cell membranes in the nuclear membrane. Go ahead and show all the vesicles, and I might want to start with or completely opaque membranes, and maybe start with a bird's eye view of the data, turn on some channels.
I think the clipping plane is still on for the recipe over
That's
here.
Okay. I'll focus on this object here.
Okay.
So I'll start with a bird's eye view. Then maybe I think a good thing would be to zoom in and maybe at the same time take away the channels just so we have some context. And then do a slow rotation. And while I'm doing this slow rotation, I think I want to reveal that there are vesicles inside as well. So I'll go ahead and change the transparencies of these. and add some more keyframes. And maybe rotate around, show a bit more. These vesicles on the outside are kind of obscuring things, so I can zoom in a little bit more maybe and continue with the rotations. And then finally at the end, maybe I want to make this looping, so I can click the first frame and then add that as another keyframe. So what do you think, Luciano? If I preview this, the timing's not right yet, but as a video showing what you've done, it's not too bad, right?
That looks pretty good.
Now that we've seen the demos, we're kind of wrapping up. I would like to thank our collaborators that give us a lot of the inspiration and push us in the right direction to continue to develop Aivia and Aivia Web and Aivia Cloud at the fast pace that we've been doing for the last few years. So a big thanks to all of them for their support, ideas, and exciting discussions. Also like to thank my team, the Aivia team, the Aivia Web team. Here's everybody. On the top row are most of the software developers, also some of the algorithm team down here, and then the customer-facing team in this row, and some of the management team down at the bottom. We do have 2 positions open, so if you're interested in joining our team, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. In conclusion, Aivia Web is an ideal partner for anybody doing bioimage analysis, and it can be used from anywhere at any time. And we have decided to include all of Aivia's functionality in Aivia Web, so it's a fully featured tool. It allows you to collaborate with any partner, maybe just across the street, or you may be across in a different continent. And it is a cost-effective solution for several use cases. Specifically, if your data already lives in the cloud, then you're a good candidate for benefiting from the functionality of Aivia Web. So thank you very much for joining the launch of Aivia Web. Appreciate it very much. We'll have a little bit of time for questions now. But before we go to the questions, I just wanted to mention that we do have a series of Aivia online workshops that leverage and use Aivia Web. We've done a whole series that finished maybe 3 weeks ago, and we started a second round with the same topics, and we're kind of halfway through. So do check our website, and you'll be able to also see Aivia Web being used in those sessions. So every user that comes to those sessions gets their own Aivia Web for that session. We do have a promotion for the functionality that we added for Aivia 9. So if you're interested in cellular analysis or the multiscale image analysis, then please do let your local Aivia representative know. He can give you details of the pricing for that, and also, of course, pricing for Aivia Web, as you saw on the slides. So now we'll take some questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining.